encouragement. We all need it. You know, I can remember numerous times when a good person was put in my path and gave me the nudge I needed to get back in the game. Charged with the responsibility can be, you know, it could just weigh down your heart, anybody's heart. You know, heeding the instructions of the Lord instead of staring at the problem is paramount in all situations. You know, after the death of Joshua, the nation of Israel had fallen into a pattern of disobedience. They failed to heed the covenant between them and God. And, you know, just as the Lord promised through Joshua's last address to the people, they found out they would suffer if they didn't follow the Lord's statutes and ordinances. In other words, they're following other gods. And we begin our message of encouragement, you know, here in the nation of Israel during the time of Judges. They had fallen into that pattern. Well, Dr. David Jeremiah, he calls it the sin cycle. You know, they sin, and then they get judgment, and then they cry out for help, and then they receive, you know, deliverance. If you check out Judges 4, verse 4, it says, "Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging," I use that word judging, "of Israel at the time." In verse 6, it says, "She sent word to Barak, Abinoam's son, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, 'Hasn't the Lord, Israel's God, issued you a command? Go and assemble at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 men from the people of Naphtali and Zebulun with you.'" And I'm going to skip to the New King James Version. "And against you I will deploy Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his multitude at the river Kishon, and I will deliver them into your hand." See, for 20 years, Jabin, the king of Canaan, had been oppressing the people, the Jewish people, the people of Israel, and it was the Jews' disobedience to God that put them in this situation. And finally, the people repented, and they cried out, and the Lord responded with Deborah, a judge. How great was she? Well, it states, "And the Israelites would come to her to settle disputes." They'd come from all over and find her underneath a tree, and she would settle all their disputes. And it sounds like she was the only one who was doing that for the nation. Now, Jabin's army is pretty powerful. It's got 900 chariots. The chariots were the tanks of their time. And they were commanded by Sisera. Must have been a mighty man, because you don't get your name mentioned in the Bible unless you're of some type of note. Now, Barak had been given a command by God and not heeded it. So it falls to Deborah to encourage him to action. And she says there in verse 6, "So she sent word to Barak, Abinoam's son, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, 'Hasn't the Lord, Israel's God, issued you a command? Go assemble at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 men from the people of Naphtali and Zebulun with you.'" I can just hear it now, today. "Barak, what are you waiting for? Come on, let's go." You know? It says there in verse 7, "And against you I will deploy Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his multitude at the river Kishon, and I will deliver him into your hand." See, Barak had his eyes fixed on the problem instead of God. Yes, the Jews would be facing 900 chariots, and they had nothing like that at all in their army. And a multitude, that's usually a number that is massive and people have problems counting. It's great. And I would dare say that the Israelites would be facing them with farm implements, bows, and slings. Now, that's according to the research that I did, because they weren't great smiths of iron at that time. However, what is this situation in comparison to the great I am? The Lord has given a direct command, and he tells them what's going to happen. He tells them what's going to happen. Check this out. He says, I will place Sisera in the exact spot. Remember that? He tells them exactly where he's going to be. And I will deliver him into your hand. Barak's victory is assured. Right there. Barak will lead the Jews to victory. It takes Deborah to remind him, hey, you have the Almighty giving you victory even before the battle begins. Get up. Get moving. You know? We all need encouragement. We do. The words of Paul ring true today that you find in 1 Thessalonians, chapter 5, verse 2. You know very, very well that the day of the Lord is going to come like a thief in the night. All of you are children of the light, children of the day. We don't belong to night or darkness. So then, let's not sleep like the others, but let's stay awake and stay sober. He's saying, be on guard. Be prepared. Remember last week? Last week, right? Keep oil in your lamp. Be ready. Just as Jesus poured himself out for you, pour yourself out for Jesus. Be found doing the work of Jesus. The Spirit's going to provide you what you need to do so. 1 Thessalonians 5, chapter 5, verse 8 says, since we belong to the day, let's stay sober. Wearing faithfulness and love as a piece of armor that protects our body, and the hope of salvation as a helmet. Know that you are a child of God, beloved by him. Know it. You have been granted salvation by grace. Understand it. The helmet of salvation is given to you by Jesus. It protects the mind, your brain, from evil. That's its function. Heed the Spirit, and it will continue, and wear it continually, and follow what Jesus would have you do. In addition, the Lord is guarding your heart faithfully, with his love. You have been given the breastplate of God to protect you from harm. Keep yourself focused on Jesus. And the Spirit will fill your heart with what you need to carry out the work of a disciple. For there is work to do. When you make Jesus the Lord of your life, he is charging you with responsibility. Check it out, Matthew 25:19. Now after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The one who had received 5 coins came forward with 5 additional coins. He said, Master, you gave me 5 valuable coins. Look, I've gained 5 more. His master replied, excellent. You are a good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will put you in charge of much. Come celebrate with me. I like the New King James Version here. Enter into the joy of your Lord. The second servant came forward and said, Master, you have given me 2 valuable coins. Look, I've gained 2 more. His master replied, well done. You are a good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will put you in charge of much. Enter into the joy of your Lord. When the Lord comes for you, there will be an accounting. It says it right there in verse 19. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts. Jesus has been gone a long time. Right? He even predicted, this is Jesus' words, he predicted it's going to be a long time before I return. And he's saying, in other words, what did you do with what God blesses you with? What did you do with it? What'd you do with God's blessings? You claim Jesus, Lord of your life. Did you do what he commanded? Did you love God? Did you love one another? Did you go out into the world making disciples? Notice how Jesus is excited to receive, and share the joys of what is his. You see that? He says, enter into the joy of your Lord. He's excited about it. He commended his faithful servants. That's why it's so important to let that breastplate of love and faithfulness guard your heart. And the helmet of salvation guard your mind. You will keep your heart and mind on Jesus and keep the trappings of the world at bay when you utilize those armaments that he has given you. For misery is all over, and it loves company. It does indeed. And they wish to drag you down with them. For these people never understand the love of God, the joy of being in a relationship with him. They only focus on fear, on the fear part. They never get past that word into loving reverence. In other words, fear of the Lord is unloving. It's a relationship of loving reverence for the Father. For God has granted us, he's granted us grace through Jesus. What in the world is that compared to 5 talents that he may trust you with? Is 5 talents worth more than grace? Hardly. Even though if you go look up 5 talents today, if it's 5 talents of gold, that may be well over $5 million. What is that compared to grace, to living eternally in the heavenly kingdom? See, everything on this planet, everything around us, everything that we see, everything unseen is the Lord's. How do I know? Well, in the beginning, God created. ... Fill it in. Everything is his. And he wants to share it with you. So be living in the way that you should be. He gives you this grace. He says, here, yours. And he just keeps pouring out for you things and talents and abilities. And he arms you well. And there are people out there go, what would I do? And I just point to this right here in front of me. Look, this. What are you doing for his people? You're doing this right here. And we have no idea where that's going. We're just trusting in God that it's going to be sent where it is needed. We're pouring out for others like the Lord pours out for us. Just like the same thing that's over there on that table. We don't know exactly where it's going to go. We have an idea, but there's a need. And we came forward and we said, here, we're going to use our talents and abilities to provide. We're going to love one another. There are some people out there that says, well, I don't have much in the way of income, or I can't physically do these things. And I say unto them, pray. Never, ever underestimate the power of prayer. It's supernatural. It is, it's for another sermon, I know for another time, but egads, never discount prayer. Never discount your encouragement. When you send a message to somebody on a little card, and you send it to them, or you make a phone call to check up on a neighbor, or you send a message, or you put a post out on Facebook that is encouraging, that's being about the Lord's business. It says so right here. Remember in 1 Thessalonians 5:10, Jesus died for us so that whether we are awake or we are asleep, we will live together with him. So continue encouraging one another, building each other up, just like you are doing already. Keep doing that. Keep doing those things. Because, the alternative for those who don't know Jesus is laid out in Matthew 25:30. Now take this worthless servant and throw him out into the farthest darkness. People there will be weeping and grinding their teeth. So keep that encouragement going for your neighbors, for your children, for your grandchildren, for your loved ones, for people you don't even know. Because we obviously want them to share in God's riches, to be welcomed into that joy that He's willing to share and provide for you, for all.